in that sacred light and love, that divine embrace of God and Guru, we'd like to welcome all of you this evening, all of those who have gathered here in Los Angeles, in the Bonaventure Hotel, and the thousands worldwide who've joined us online. So with the greatest joy, and you can feel the anticipation, please stand, and we'll be joined by our revered President and spiritual head, our dear Brother Chidananda.
Well, please sit down. Loving greetings and pranams to my dear convocation-charged joy and peace and divine enthusiasm radiating soul friends. Let me have a look at you. And them inside the camera too. I think it worked, Master. Well, here we are at near the end of this fantastic week. All of you have been so immersed in, so concentratedly and receptively receiving what God and Guru have to give to all of you. So I'm just going to pick up a few threads from what you have already heard and what's been presented over the last week. And it really comes down to this. I think we can sum up the essence, the sum total of what you will be taking with you at the end of convocation. I think we can sum that up in just a few words. You know what they are? Jesus Christ, Bhagavan Krishna, Mahavatar Babaji, Lahiri Mahashai, Swami Sri Yukteswarji, Paramahansa Yogananda ji. You see, my dear ones, this is the way that you make permanent what you have gained this week. Those gains of spiritual awareness, of higher consciousness, of clarity of purpose, I hope. This is the way that you hold on to it, by maintaining a living link with Christ, Krishna, and the Masters. Better than that, be a living link with Christ, Krishna, and the Masters. We must never think that there's any distance. Distance between us and those great ones is just delusion. We should never accept it. Those divine ones who have been sent to us by God to bring us freedom, for bring us healing, to bring us guidance, to bring us bliss. There's no distance. If we ever feel that is becoming a little tenuous or hard to hold on to, you know what to do, don't you? You know what to do. You just stop. Whenever you can, stop what you're doing. Find a time or a place just to have a moment of interiorization. And you close your eyes and you look within and you say to them, Jesus, Krishna, Babaji, Lahiri Mahashai, Sri Yukteswarji and Gurudev, manifest in the light of my spiritual eye. You do that with me. Close your eyes, you look in there, and keep in mind, there is no darkness in the spiritual eye. There's only light that perhaps we haven't been able to see yet. No darkness. So say to them, Krishna, Jesus, Babaji, Lahiri Mahashai, Sri Yukteswarji, Gurudev, manifest in the light of my spiritual eye. Sometimes I like to say to them, manifest in the visible or invisible light of my spiritual eye, because I know you are there. I know you are there, whether I can see or not, I feel. And in my spiritual eye, in my heart, I know you are there. This is how the devotee maintains that connection, maintains that link, maintains that relationship. I know you are there, and in my heart and my spiritual eye, I will meet thee, I will touch thee, I will love thee, and coax thee into my ever receptive love and longing and gratitude and loyalty for you. Well, my dears, I have to confess to you, I'd be perfectly happy just to continue on in that devotional communion, going deeper and deeper. I will meet thee, I will touch thee, I will love thee, and coax thee to my altar of peace, and coax thee to my altar of bliss. That's what we live for, isn't it? That's what gives meaning to our lives, that kind of personal communion for each one of us. And one of the things that I know we have felt this week, all of you and us monastics as well, it's not only what gives meaning to our lives personally, but it's what creates that beautiful, deep, and so sweet bond of divine friendship among each one of us. How beautiful, how beautiful. One just wants to go deeper and deeper into that, to hold on to it, to feel it, to share it, to let it flow through all of our activities. An unceasing communion. But there's always a but in this world, isn't there? In addition to that, we got work to do. We have work to do. So let's roll up our sleeves and see what we can do to fulfill the spiritual assignments, the spiritual roles that's been given to each one of us by that divine director in this movie House of Life. Are you up for it? All right, but first though, before we go any further, let me just take a moment to express my thanks, and I'm sure all of your thanks too, for those who have made this convocation possible. Let's take a moment and we thank the hundreds, literally hundreds, of wonderful volunteers and staff who have served behind the scenes. They serve in so many ways. If I started to list them, that's good. That's what we want to hear. If I started to list all of the things they do, we'd be here for another week. It's that big of an operation, but I think we offer them that heartfelt respect and heartfelt appreciation for what we've been able to receive during this convocation. You know, last year at the end of convocation, I jokingly commented that we had people attending from every continent except Antarctica. And a little later, a devotee sent me this picture. Can you show that on the screen? With the he was stationed there at a government research station and made sure for all of us to know that that copy of autobiography stayed there in the research center's library. I also want to take a moment just to extend our greetings and form a connection with the far-flung outposts of convocation this year. You know, again, as last year, we started this, what is going to become certainly a very welcome tradition of sending our nuns and monks to many different cities around the world. And they will join with the devotees there, have an in-person convocation, watch the live streams, have meditations and so on. So can you see? You can see the map there. So starting over on the left side, I'm going to look at my copy here. First of all, way over there in India, all of our ashrams there, the monks hosted the devotees for many of the events. Of course, they had a little challenge with the 13-hour time difference, but we're just thrilled to know that so many of our brothers and sisters in India were joining us from afar. So that's in all 5 of our ashrams there in India. And then going a little bit further to the right, we had Sister Preeti and Brahmachari Kelly, who met with devotees for convocation in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia and Singapore. And then continuing over to Australia, Brother Bhimananda and Brahmachari Daniel spent the time first in Sydney. See, the way it worked, the monastics went to 2 different locations. The first half of the week to one city, and then midway to the second city. So Brother Bhimananda and Brahmachari Daniel went to Sydney, Australia first, and then to a center in the Sunshine Coast of Australia. Sounds pretty nice. And by the way, maybe this is a good time to share with all of you. It gives me great joy to anticipate that, God willing, at the beginning of next year, I plan to return to India, and on the way, to stop in Australia. All you devotees in Australia, can you just keep the setup there for a few months? And I look forward to seeing you early next year, and India as well. So then going further, we have in the U.S., it's Chicago, and was Brother Balananda and Brother Nakulananda, and then they flew halfway through down to Dominican Republic, to Santo Domingo in the Caribbean. And then we had On the East Coast of U.S., we had Brother Keshavananda and Brother Naradananda, who visited Boston and New York City. You can kind of feel, as I name each one, there's just this little surge through the ether, isn't it, that we receive from the devotees in these places. Then again on the East Coast at our Greenfield ashram in Virginia, Sister Vinita and Brahmachari Ann and other nuns hosted a program for devotees in that area. And then we go down further south, and Brother Samatananda and Brahmachari Marco first went to Quito in Ecuador, and then over to the Atlantic coast in Brazil to the city of Salvador. In Brazil. So another disclosure, again, God willing, I'm hoping to go to Brazil and Argentina. That would be later in the year after I'll go to India and Australia in the beginning, and then toward the end of the year, I hope to Brazil and Argentina. There you are. We have some here from Brazil or Argentina? Argentina and Brazil. All right. Well, God bless you. I'm looking forward to it. All right. Then going further, we had, let's see, where are we here? In London. We had Sister Anjali and Sister Bhagavati. They went to London. And then we'll come back to their other trip. And then Brother Kalyanananda and Brother Muktananda went to Frankfurt in Germany and Vienna in Austria. And at our Nuremberg ashram in northern Germany and central Germany, Sister Vandana and the other nuns that live there hosted a week-long convocation, in-person convocation, and the devotees there. And then the last one I didn't mention was Sister Anjali and Sister Bhagavati. After leaving London, then they went down there to Assisi, to Italy. I think they're returning the visit of St. Francis, who came to Mount Washington many years ago. You know, actually, Master himself returned that visit in 1935, but I thought I would share this story with you. I don't know that it's ever really been told the way that Master told it. When we think about the devotees there in Assisi, this makes it very meaningful. And here's what he said. He told the devotees, one day, in the midst of a lecture that I was delivering at Mount Washington, I began to feel the presence of St. Francis. And then I saw his luminous form standing by my side. And I said suddenly to the stenographer who was present, take this down, for St. Francis is standing by my side. He is dictating this. And then the poem, God, 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 came spontaneously from my lips. That came from him. Guruji said, I don't think a word had been changed. That was his poem, not mine. And that's why I paid a visit to Assisi. And I read also that St. Francis every night saw Christ in the woods of Assisi and talked with him. He is one of my patron saints. He called him one of his patron saints. Why? Several reasons, I think. First, of course, partly because of that poem, God, 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 which so beautifully encapsulates or epitomizes the very essence of our own Guru's spiritual life, his interior life. And partly also, as he often said, is because of how beautifully St. Francis illustrated or exemplified that sacred guru-disciple relationship, even though his guru, Jesus, had lived 1,000 years before. Guruji often held him up as an example in that way. And it certainly is very meaningful for all of us who cultivate that beautiful and most sacred guru-disciple relationship with our own master and lineage of Param Gurus. I think there were also other reasons he called St. Francis a patron saint, other linkages with his work, which I won't get into right now. But I only mention this story for a particular reason, one reason, and that is when we reflect on the masters and saints that are linked with this work, that are behind this work, it is breathtaking. It is breathtaking. I'm going to come back to that in a little bit later as we go along. Well, now you're getting ready to depart from the convocation. I think many of us must feel like the disciples of Jesus when he said, "I send you out as sheep in the midst of wolves." Huh? Yeah. Well, in commenting on that, Master put it very graphically. He said, "The ravenous wolves of ruthless, conscienceless people and the predacious satanic sense temptations that are everywhere present in worldly environments." Oh my goodness. Maybe you better stay here a little longer until things get a little better, huh? We can make a nice World Brotherhood colony and maybe a few how to live schools where you can send your kids. Okay? Someday, certainly. Maybe, as Master used to say to Brother Anandamoy, soon now. Maybe. You know, soon now has a very flexible meaning in SRF. But anyways, in the meantime, even though you have to go out as sheep in the midst of wolves, I want you to remember one thing. The sheep never have to be afraid as long as they have a good shepherd. Our Guru just loved that 23rd Psalm. Many of you know it, of course. "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. And surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life." My dear brothers and sisters, each one of you can walk through the world carrying that staff. That staff that bestows supreme comfort and protection. And that is the staff of the spiritualized and awakened spine. That's one of the key goals in the teachings of our path, how to find God on the altar of the spiritualized spine, how to awaken those divine centers of life and consciousness, as we were talking in the meditation a few days ago, that radiate those vibrations of Om, the great comforter, into our bodies, into our minds, into our feelings, into our thoughts, our hearts and brains. Then each of us can really sing along with the psalmist, "Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me." You can you've had a glimpse of that. And keep that in mind as you sit every morning and evening and practice your meditation, and particularly that wonderful liberating technique of Kriya Yoga. That's the blessing of the spiritual science of Kriya Yoga. And when that spine begins to awaken through the practice of Kriya, then we walk through this life singing the song of God's presence. That's what it means to become a mystic in the heart of the world. And that's what Guruji wants and expects and shows each one of you how to do, to be a mystic in the heart of the world. That's how St. Francis was. Sri Chaitanya, our own Gurudev, Paramahansaji. And again, that's what he summed up in that poem that I referred to, God, God, God. You all know it, these immortal words. In waking, eating, working, dreaming, sleeping, serving, chanting, meditating, divinely loving, my soul constantly hums, unheard by any, God, God, God. It makes me so happy to know that in SRF and YSS, we have many, many mystics in the heart of the world. Will you affirm that with me? Let's repeat this famous last verse together. Everybody together. In waking, eating, working, dreaming, sleeping, serving, meditating, chanting, divinely loving, my soul constantly hums, unheard by any, God, God, God. So learn to walk through this world carrying that staff of your spiritualized spine. That will not only make you a mystic in the heart of the world, it will give you something else. It will give you moral courage. It'll make you a person of real moral courage. Another word for that is moral dignity. Moral courage, moral dignity. What does that mean? It means using what we've been given on this path and during the classes of this week. Using the yoga science of identification to live in this world as what we truly are, a child of God, a soul, immortal soul, made in the image of God. When you feel that moral courage, which again comes from the practice of meditation, it comes from aligning the determination and the will and the identity, your identity, aligning those with that divine soul nature that's irrevocable in each one of us. When we can do that, when the heart and mind vibrate with that consciousness, then again we come back, we can say with the psalmist, I will fear no evil. I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Here's what I do. I'll share it with you. And you adapt this to your own particular circumstances. But this is using that yoga science of identification in the way that I've been talking about. After you practice your Kriya, at the end of meditation, after feeling those currents in the spine, centralizing the awareness at the spiritual eye, here's what I do. Eternal Father, I am your Son. Awaken my spine. Make me conscious of my true identity, a soul, a radiating ray of your being. I am a soul, a radiating ray of your being, infinite power, infinite joy. And then, Eternal Mother, 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 I am your Son. Awaken my spine. Make me conscious of my true identity, a soul, a radiating ray of your being. I am a soul, a radiating ray of your being, Divine Mother, infinite beauty, infinite unconditional love. That's what Kriya Yoga will do for us. We become a mystic in the heart of the world. We become a person of real moral courage. And then there's a third blessing. Our intuition begins to awaken. Our intuition begins to awaken, and we receive guidance from within. No matter what's coming at us from left or right, or faster than perhaps we think we can react or deal with it. That inner guidance is always there, and it awakens as we practice Kriya, giving us guidance about what we need to do in the moment to triumph over any challenges that we encounter. Master tells us that. It's in the supplement lesson in lesson 92. He says, awakening the spine awakens intuition. Awakening the spine awakens intuition. And then he said, intuition automatically develops by the practice of Kriya Yoga. I'm just itemizing what I want you to take with you as you go back to your daily lives. You know, this is the kind of spirituality that millions are hungry for. This is the kind of spirituality that millions hunger for and are unable to find. The blessed few find it. You know, the social structures, the institutions that historically have sustained and been the guardians of the moral fiber of society, giving comfort, giving some guidance. Mostly we see these being rejected today. And there's a reason for it, is because dogma is not enough to keep people interested in religion or spirituality. In fact, it's often very divisive, isn't it? People nowadays are looking for truth that unites and connects our world family, not divides it. And most of all, they're looking not just for platitudes, but for techniques. Techniques that bestow actual experience of the God of bliss, the God of wisdom, peace, healing, and unconditional love. I'm going to tell you a little story about our Guru. Next year, 2025, marks the 100th anniversary of his acquiring and founding our international headquarters at Mount Washington. And to dedicate it in 1925, he had a wonderful event up there at the top of the hill. The building was overflowing. The accounts say that there were 2,000 plus people filling the whole main hall, some of them sitting on the windowsills and out on the grounds, and it was just quite an event. Big attendance. All of the or many of the leading citizens of Los Angeles, congressmen, political, social leaders. Everybody wanted to be a part of what this new Swami was bringing to Los Angeles. But I'm bringing this up in connection with the point that I just was sharing. And I want to read to you what he said. It's a little long, but as always with his words, every sentence of it carries a power, carries an infusion of enthusiasm and strength if we just sit quietly and listen. So here's what he said to the group that was gathered there atop Mount Washington. I welcome you to our home, where truth's spirit shall reign. You don't need to be afraid of dogmas here. There shall be no doctrine of dogmatism reigning here. Truth drives away all dark and divisive sectarian dogmas. In the light of truth, in the light of tolerance, in the light of mutual understanding, I welcome you all. And then he went on and said, I welcome especially all of those who have helped me to build this institution. And I welcome every one of you who has cooperated with us in action, in goodwill, even in thought. I thank you all. My part I am doing. It is up to you to do your part. Let us cooperate in fostering here such a spirit of rational education that will enlighten the world, driving away and banishing darkness from all nations of the earth. In that spirit, let us unite, let us join hands, let us cooperate, not only materially, but as a league of souls. And upon that foundation, a true League of Nations shall be built. Above all, Guruji finished and said, this institution is going to exemplify for you the means of living life according to the highest spiritual standards. Everybody must be taught to understand the how to live principles by which they shall automatically be happy. To be spiritual is to be happy. And those who are not spiritual are never lastingly happy. That is why this institution will vibrate this thought. My body might go, but this wish of mine will ever vibrate here. There shall be an invisible vibration that ceaselessly broadcasts. Come, 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 everybody, those who are sorrowful, those that are sick, those that are lost in darkness, be healed of physical, mental, and spiritual sickness. Come, 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 everybody. That is the legacy that we carry on today. You know, last year I was in India. Many of you know, many of you were there actually, and lots of those who are participating online remember the wonderful programs that we had there. We had a program there at Ranchi where Guruji had his How to Live school, and we had in Hyderabad a mini convocation attended by thousands from around the world, and then in Dakshinaswar in Calcutta, and Delhi at our Noida ashram. And I urge them all this that I want to share with you. I urge them, each one of you, be a living link between ancient India's higher golden age of spirituality and our awakening global civilization. And now I'd like to add to that, especially for those here in the West. Be a living link between our awakening global civilization and Christ, Krishna, and the Masters. Raise your hand if you want to give that a try. Be a living link between our awakening global civilization and Christ, Krishna, and the Masters. Now, that word awakening, that's a key point here. How many of you have raised children or are raising children? And how many of you are children who are being raised spiritually? Probably most of us. So you can understand that there comes a point in the time of a growing, a maturing child, every maturing young adult, where there's an awakening of powers, of forces, abilities, energies, physically and mentally, in the body and mind, isn't it? We all went through that. We all hopefully guided our children through that. Because it's the responsibility of parents to help their sons and daughters to learn how to constructively manage and utilize those energies and those forces, mental and physical, to create happiness and create success in their lives. Now, the same thing is true with humanity at large. Same thing. We're awakening into a consciousness collectively, into a consciousness of newly discovered forces, energies, and powers. And we need somebody to show us what to do with them. Yes? Constructively. If we don't learn to use them constructively, the world will suffer the consequences. It's there, right there before our eyes, isn't it, unfortunately? But if we do learn how to use those forces and powers and energies, which we will, a new age of prosperity, of harmony, spiritual understanding, and peace will come on earth. You know, in the world, I think we can safely say that there's quite a spectrum of fulfillment of parental duties. Some parents do a better or worse job in raising their children, and unfortunately, sometimes no job at all, isn't it? But that is certainly not true with our spiritual parents. That is not true with our spiritual parents. They take their responsibility very seriously. And it's the responsibility of our spiritual parents to give us the necessary training, to give us the necessary upbringing by which we can understand and utilize these divine forces, and even the material forces, for our own highest benefit and also for that of the entire world. Who are those spiritual parents? You all know. The good shepherds of the world, our masters. The masters, the good shepherds of the world, Christ, Krishna, Babaji, and so on. Sometimes, particularly being exposed to the ceaseless flow of what they call news, which is getting a little old, isn't it? You know, sometimes we think, well, what can I do? What should I do about the world's problems? Don't despair. Don't feel that things are too dark. Now, if you're reacting from your identity as a helpless mortal being, ignorant of your divine potentials, then yes, it's pretty dark. But if you're reacting from a positive identification as a divine being, a soul, made in the image of God, then we get a whole different perspective. Then we get a whole different perspective. I think you understand the difference between those two options, yes? But here's the thing. There's a third option, which is even more inspiring. And that is, when you look at the world from your identification of yourself as a divine being, and then add to that the awareness that there are even higher beings, the masters, the good shepherds of the world, who are helping and watching and protecting us and the world. What have we got to worry about? What have we got to worry about? Sometimes it seems like the media outlets, I think they consciously hire people who can take any news, even good news, and then write a headline that makes it sound fearful. You know? I don't know. Do they go to some school to learn how to do that? And be on guard. It makes that word that we hear so often today. It makes for good clickbait, but that's about all. It makes for good clickbait, but it neglects a very important spiritual truth. And this is what I want you to remember. This is what I want you to take with you. There are powerful spiritual forces for good that are active in this world. There are powerful spiritual forces for good that are active in this world to the degree that our spirituality and good actions, in other words, our spiritual karma, permit. Let that sink in. Master spoke about this many times. I want to share with you a few stories. Particularly, he spoke about this during World War II. And he would talk to the devotees who came, small groups, to his more informal and personal gatherings in the temples here in California during the height of the war. And listen to what he said. This is some excerpts from one of the talks that he gave in 1943, right in the height, darkest times of World War II. And he reminded everybody, he said, some of the masters and saints, even after attaining their own freedom, work for this world. Babaji is still living in India in an immortal body. Jesus meets him there, and together they are helping the world. Do you think they are just sitting quietly somewhere? No. They are doing a lot, only they don't want it to be advertised. So he went on and said, the masters are not sitting still by any means. They are busy for us. They work with the thoughts of men. But they could not work. Here's the point. They could not work, Master said, unless certain karmic conditions are there. They work for our good, but they could not work if there were not certain karmic conditions were there. He said, God works through his laws, and the masters do too, meaning the law of karma, of course. Now, maybe some of you who know a little bit about World War II, the history of it, you may know that there were quite a few during those years, quite a few critical turning points on which the entire outcome of the war hinged, and that they seemed to be just a matter of chance or good luck. If you're a historian, you may know Battle of Midway, Dunkirk, the North Africa campaign, Imphal, east of Calcutta, and others. Amazing, amazing and inexplicable. But Master said that for many of these, it was not at all a matter of luck or chance. There was much more involved. Let me read to you what he said. He said the two militarist powers were prevented from controlling the world. If they had conquered, we would have been under their heel and controlled by dictators for many, many years. And then he said the good karma of America and good karma of India played the greatest part in this war in turning the tide, and that was worked by the great ones, Jesus, Babaji, and others. He said Hitler was winning the war until the masters planted the thoughts in his mind which caused him to make the wrong moves. And this is also, he said, how India was protected by the masters. Now, this is very deep, it's a very fascinating subject. We don't have time today to go fully into the many ramifications of this. When the story of Master's life fully comes out, which we're working on, it will all be told in completeness. But I wanted to tell you this much today. I wanted to say this much today because it illustrates a very timely truth for all of us. It's not about World War II. It's not about history lessons or what took place between this army and this country and that country. Not at all. It's the underlying principle at work. So here's how Master summed it up. He said, the masters and Jesus are very active in this world. As soon as they see that any nation has sufficient good karma, they work right there. They have a whole host of angels and saints that work with them. You've heard stories of soldiers on the battlefield who have at times seen a host of angels hovering about. So Christ and the Masters are more near than you realize. They are living and they are helping and serving the world today, and you must cooperate with them. Master said, you must cooperate with them through your lives. Increase the karma of goodness, the power of peace, so that we can have a better world in which to live. Do you see now why I pointed out that such a vital skill, such a necessary skill, become a living link with Christ, Krishna, and the Masters? Not only for our personal well-being and spiritual growth, but to create that collective, that mass spiritual karma through which the Masters can do more to help and uplift the world in our time. So here we are near the end of Convocation. Take the inspiration, take the spiritual consciousness that you have gathered during these days. Hold on to it. Deepen it. Feed it. Nourish it. Let it infuse your daily life. Let it infuse your daily life with faith, with joy, with divine love and power. And by doing that, my dears, each one of you can become an awakened nerve center in the world body, an awakened nerve center in this subtly networked collective consciousness of mankind, a nerve center that is dynamically attuned to the vibratory presence of God and the great ones, dynamically attuned to their wisdom, their love, their courage, their compassion, their spirit of service. By doing that, my dears, we can heal and change this world. All of you know that we're not a missionary organization. We don't send out salesperson, spiritual salesperson, is it, to try to convert people to join our path or follow our teachings. And you know what? We don't need to. We don't need to. There are millions in this world who are ripe and ready for this teaching. Millions who would eagerly embrace and practice them, these teachings and techniques, if they only knew that the opportunity was there. So that's where each one of us has to apply what we know about increasing the mass spiritual karma of the world, about our own personal transformation, about living a life that is consciously connected to that very source of man's divine potentials. And we have to multiply the tools and resources by which this great message of Kriya Yoga can spread to those millions of souls. That's what was predicted by our Guru many, many years ago. We have to multiply the means and the resources by which the message of Kriya Yoga can reach out to them. When we look back at what our Guru brought 100 years ago, when he landed in Boston in 1920, what did he bring? What did he bring to the world? He called it the science of religion. And he described that as the underlying truths that have been promulgated by the illumined masters and prophets and rishis and seers, the spiritual illuminators of humanity down the ages. It was the underlying essence of that, but purified and streamlined of any limiting sectarian or denominational baggage. Powerful. It was powerful. And he called it a special dispensation, sent by the great ones at this particular point in history, when humanity was on the cusp of a spiritual awakening, a new age of human civilization and development. I know all of us who have devoted years of our lives to following these teachings and building our lives around them, we view that moment in time as having profound historical significance. Wouldn't you say so? Now, 100 years later, we find ourselves on the cusp of a similar significant milestone. A point, let me say this if I can express this, a point that has been prepared by many decades of preparation, of foundation building and cultivating deep roots of spiritual practice and organizational development in SRF and YSS. And by God and Guru's grace, these are now resulting in abundant fruits that precisely correspond to the needs of our emerging global civilization. You know, the last time I was sitting on this stage, it was 2019. You remember who was here? It's interesting to remember that we were then discussing at that time the launch of our SRF and YSS online meditation center. You remember? Well, we've come quite a ways since then. By Guru's grace and the help of you all, monastics, our wonderful employees and volunteers that help in so many ways, day in and day out throughout the year, to do all that is humanly possible to spread this message of Kriya Yoga to those thirsty souls who are waiting for it, who don't even know maybe that they're waiting for it. We had the online convocation, the online weekly services, the development of our voluntary League of Disciples, wonderful spiritual army of devotees from around the world, translations of programs in many languages, and so on. But here's the thing. We still have a vast amount to do. We have a vast amount to do. I know from the letters that come to me, the messages, verbal and written, that come from so many from around the world. And more than that, I know from the light and the joy that radiates from your lives. I can see it sitting up here, what these teachings have done in the lives of all of you. And with that comes a sense of urgency, isn't it? The sense of urgency the need for that flow of spiritual power, that flow of Guruji's transforming wisdom and teachings, those universal techniques, that science of religion that speaks to the entire family of humanity, that unites rather than divides. Again, those teachings that he brought, they're uniquely suited for our global family at this moment in time. So, as we close, I want you to remember what Guruji said at that dedication of Mount Washington. Come, 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 everybody. Everybody. That voice of his, that loving call of our Gurudev that has echoed down the decades, even to our present time. All of you have heard it. All of you have responded to it. And millions more are destined to be awakened by that soul call. While we're all together, I want to take this time to thank all of you, all of our wonderful family of devotees around the world, all the ways in which you help to carry on this spiritual legacy of Paramahansa Yogananda and the Param Gurus. We couldn't do it without you. You have my soul's gratitude, and I know you have the blessing and the appreciation of God and Guru. All of you who are helping spiritually, materially, by volunteering in other ways, thank you. God bless you. Let's continue, as Guruji said at that dedication, let's continue to join hands, to join hearts like a league of souls, a fellowship of souls, to increase the light that's radiated by Master's sacred work and his universal teachings at this critical time. I'm giving a lot of thought to that in the weeks and months ahead. I'll have more to share with you as the year goes on. But I wanted to mention it here near the end of our convocation, when we are all charged with that vision of possibilities. Not just a vision, a realization of what that does in our own lives, the strength, the courage, the understanding, the attunement, the inner guidance. Most sweetly of all, that ability to walk through the world as a mystic in love with God. That's what we all want. That's what our world needs. And that's what our world will receive from the hands of Jesus Christ, Bhagavan Krishna, Mahavatar Babaji, Lahiri Mahashai, Swami Sri Yukteswar, and our revered Guru, Sri Sri Paramahansa Yoganandaji. Let us make ourselves living links with them. steadfast in that moral courage, the courage that comes from being a mystic in the heart of the world. And in that victorious consciousness, then each one of us can affirm with the psalmist, surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Jai Guru. God bless you all. If you only knew how much I respect each one of you. Oh, what the lives that you are leading in the face of, we can't even imagine the challenges and the different circumstances that come up, and yet day after day, year after year, you keep on, you persevere, you hold to that hand of our good shepherd, Paramahansa Yogananda, and you find his presence here within in the spiritual eye, in the spiritual light, and you bring that into whatever confronts you. I love you for it. God bless you all.